Welcome to the Hindu Parenting Podcast. Today, we will speak about the festival of Holi. Holi is celebrated on the full moon, Purnima, in the month of Phalgun as per the Hindu calendar. To help us understand the traditions, the stories, and the issues surrounding the festival, we have a special guest today, Neha ji, who is the founder of Shaktitva Foundation, a Devi Upasaka, and many things besides. She is also a software engineer. Namaste, Neha ji.
Namaste, everyone. Really glad that you chose me to be here. I think Holi is definitely one of the top two festivals that we celebrate in North India, and I'm glad to share it with you all.
Oh, we are very happy to have you on our podcast too. So, this being a special Holi episode, could you tell us a little bit about your childhood memories? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I actually am born and raised in Lucknow, the capital of Uttar Pradesh. As you can imagine, that's like the heart of the what they call a Hindi heartland. So, we have very, very elaborate celebration of Holi. Like the anticipation starts building up, honestly, from like right after Basant Panchami. The Holi and Diwali are the two major festivals where like, everything comes together. For the Western audience, I often compare that to like we have this is our Christmas. It's that big. So
Oh,
yeah, I grew up in Lucknow, and Holi was like when we were even like younger, like and Diwali are the two times when you definitely get new clothes. That's a guarantee. You may or
yeah.
may not on your birthday or any other occasion, but these two you are definitely going to get new clothes. The growing up, the fondest memories are that most of my cousins, who are usually busy with their daily lives, they're working in different cities and so on. They'll all like use the holy vacations to come to the hometown, and we had like a joint family sort of a setup. So we would get relatives we hadn't seen in months, sometimes even years, who will come over to celebrate with us.
Neha ji,
And
so is there a
yeah,
concept of holy vacations in the north? I've not heard of that.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So
Oh,
like for example, right now my niece has her board exam starting on 27th. Yeah, that is Monday. But she will get 5 days off around Holi for board.
wow, really? This is news to me. I didn't know that,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
are vacations for Holi also.
And
Okay.
in fact, my other niece is in the engineering school right now, and she is getting a 10-day off. So
Wow,
she's
10
going back
days
fantastic.
for
home.
Holi. Huh?
Yep.
That's
So I
so
think what
Lovely.
they
cool.
do is they integrate Holi with whatever their summer like semester break is, so that it
Okay.
happens at the same. So like say the same as spring break, right? Like, but in this scenario, spring break and Holi are done together.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
so please continue. Continue.
Yeah. So we have this, people would come like as you said, like as because you get these longer vacations, you take time to go back to family if you're not living with them. Also, the preparations in the household start honestly even months before. So there is this. So when you're celebrating Holi in the middle of it, like you're drenched in colors and you get hungry, right?
Hmm.
But you can't sit down to eat your regular food, right? What are you gonna eat? Because you're all like literally like dripping with colors. So we
Yeah.
have to prepare. You have to prepare snacks, right? That
Okay.
are like that are sort of homemade fried snacks. So the sweets are offerings. You can eat those. So what we call gujia. But other than that, the ladies will start preparing chips and papad. So chips is mostly potato chips, but also other kinds of chips. And papad. So I'm sure if you don't know, the process of making chips requires slice the potatoes in a certain thickness. You lay it all to be dried in the sun, and only then for many many days, and only then it's ready. Same is the story with papad.
Oh,
So for
okay.
papad, for like aloo papad is easier, like potato papad is easier. But if you're making papad from tapioca, sabudana,
Uh,
then that one, you have to make that paste, spread it really thin on a plastic, and then again put it out in the sun to soak, to dry. And if it's not dry, it's not going to fry. Okay, so this is a very, very elaborate process that's taken up almost weeks before. Like I'm sure, like if, back in India right now, the process has started in my home.
So this all
Um,
this happens even now? I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's
okay.
honestly, it kind of depends on the person. Like, you can be as um, you can do as much of this as you want, and sometimes you obviously the replacements are available in the market. So if you don't have time to make papad and chips, you can always buy them. But we're talking about memories, so this was definitely in the every family and every sister-in-law, mother-in-law that I knew, whether it was a working lady or not, they're coming back, and even the entire family is involved, to be honest. Like my brother used to boil potatoes and
Oh,
we used to help them spread. No, because it's a lot of work, like one person can't do it. So literally, like, kids will get involved, and also it's fun because like we're not now all hanging around it, and maybe we get to take a bite of it uncooked and raw, and then our tummies will hurt. But children will be children. Um,
Yes.
it
but yeah,
sounds
so
like a whole load of fun, really.
it, yeah, it's a very, very elaborate process. So this starts weeks before. Then you have to plan for the actual Holi. So you have to buy colors in advance and so on. And then if sometimes daughters will visit their Maika, like your mother's
Okay.
home with their husbands,
Yeah.
if they're local, usually if they're local. So during the playing time, them and their, like, so usually what happens, you play for a little bit in your home, and then sometimes if you have local relatives, you kind of do a tour. Like you go
Okay.
to those other houses and play. So sometimes daughters will visit, and then mothers will get very anxious that, oh, she's going to visit, so now we have to prepare all of the stuff that has to be given to her, and all that fun. So it
Yeah.
gets like, the preparations take a while. Then the day before Holi is the Holika Dahan. We'll talk a little bit more in detail about it.
Yeah.
But that is the sort of it's very similar to how the day before Diwali is. So the Narak
Mm.
Chaturdashi, that and this one is very similar, where you basically the idea is that you clean your house, get all the impurities out of the house, and in this time, we actually put those impurities and burn it in the bonfire. So it's kind of like a
Mm.
evil warding ritual, right? And there is a
Mm.
mythological reason behind it, or like Raja. I don't want to call it mythological. It's a legendary reason behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So and then after the I think the next day is the playing with colors, no? And then what
Yes,
happens
exactly.
after all the masti is over?
And then you have to clean clean up yourself.
Is that something people looked forward to, or it was
No,
a
no, no. That's the worst part. Obviously, nobody looks forward to it. And depending on how 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 should I say, how naughty your cousins and friends are, that will increase the intensity of the cleanup. So usually, like if you're playing with dry powder colors, which is like gulal, is what we call it in Hindi, those are
Mm.
relatively easier to clean up. Like you can just shower and shampoo, and it's more or less it cleans up fast.
Mm.
But
Mm.
these days, sometimes you start getting those wet colors, right? So you mix
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
It comes like in a very crystallized form powder, and you mix it in the water, and then it becomes colored water. So you throw water at each other.
Okay.
Again, that can also relatively get cleaned up. But the
Mm.
naughty part is, now at least my brothers used to do this, and I am, if you've never met me, but I'm short, height wise, right?
Okay.
So what
Okay.
they'll do is they'll get that entire box of the crystals and put it on my head,
Oh
dry,
my.
not
Okay.
with water. So when I'm
Uh,
shampooing, now this thing is dissolving. Okay.
oh.
So, so that's when it starts to dissolve, and I get freshly coated as I'm shampooing, like as I'm showering.
Okay.
So for like
It,
hours, like the water has to run from my head so that the color and will keep coming out and out and out. So sometimes I'm actually more colorful after the shower than before the shower. So it
it's
depends.
a diabolical
Yeah,
plan that
yeah, yeah.
can be hatched
Oh my
by
God. People get
brothers.
very creative on Holi. So you must have heard, like, neighborhood boy, little young boys will, or boys and girls, in fact, both. They'll make those balloons filled with water, and they'll, throw those from
Throw.
rooftops
Yeah. Huh.
to tease people. We all get yelled at for it. But kids being kids. And then there's also like sometimes the some of the friends will hide on the balcony, and they will target the people who are coming to the house, right? Like, so if you're knocking and if the
Yeah.
balcony faces the door, you're standing up on the balcony hoping to not be noticed. And as soon as you come to knock, we will pour, color from
Color.
the
Okay.
balcony on top of you. But the fun part, another interesting thing is Holi is, in fact, there is an entire genre of songs, traditional
Ah,
folk songs about Holi. And in there, you'll notice a theme in there, right? Those are very,
okay.
very naughty songs. And by naughty, I mean like usually there is a decorum of how you talk to people or how you behave with certain relations, right? So for
Mm,
example, the daughter's husband is like a uh, sort of a celebrity, like a mini celebrity in the
yeah.
daughter's home. So like there's like a
Mm,
certain decorum, like you want to offer the best food to him, and you want to treat him special. And also same thing
yeah.
with elders, and in some in-law relationships are also like that. Like daughters-in-law will be very respectful for brothers-in-law and so on.
Yeah.
But on Holi, we call it like
Mm,
all sins are forgiven. so it so there is
okay.
a in fact there's a slogan called Bura na mano Holi. Don't mind, this is
Oh,
Holi. So I have permission, that
okay.
I have an implicit permission to break those barriers. So what that means
Mm,
is, if I am a younger sister, usually I'll be very respectful towards my older brother or older sister, but on Holi I can actually play all these tricks on them, and they're not allowed to get angry at
yeah.
me.
Okay.
And the same thing, it will even transcend those boundaries of marriages and custom. So like daughters-in-law will sometimes play pranks on their in fact their mother-in-law, or like even their brother-in-law and so on. So like that kind of license to be completely free and enjoy the festival in your in your natural form, and that like that laughter and joy, that uncontrolled, or rather uninhibited joy,
Mm,
is what
mm,
actually brings the beauty of the festival.
mm.
An opportunity to let off some steam also, right? For
Exactly. So people look
young.
forward to it. If you've been sometimes, like, if you've had some, say, let's say you've had a fight with your sister-in-law, you haven't been seeing eye to eye. Holi is the time where you get to be, where you get to kind
You
of
get to
forget
take
all that.
revenge.
Or maybe that, yes, exactly. Because she's not allowed to get upset. So
Yeah.
that there are songs, entire songs dedicated on how, Bura Na Mano Holi Hai theme,
Okay.
essentially.
See,
Okay.
this part is so cultural. Anybody who's not part of this culture, who hasn't seen it growing up, will have some trouble relating to it, and the chance of misinterpreting this is very high, I feel. But
Oh,
we'll come back.
absolutely. In fact, this is known, right? Like, for example, if somebody even from other parts of India has moved recently to some part of North India and they see it for the first time, it will in fact appear weirdly rowdy.
Mm.
Like you look like, oh my God, what are these, people who appear? It's honestly, we are having so much fun that sometimes we look drunk, but we're not. But if people like so out, like uninhibited, that you would feel that they're maybe like high on something, and you'll see
Mm.
groups of these extremely colored people, wearing weirdo clothes, walking around with bags of color in their hands and throwing it at random strangers and yelling, "Oh, bura na mano holi hai." It sounds very uncultured, right? And in fact,
Yeah.
like, so it's very common for you, like maybe you're not expecting to be colored, but suddenly somebody throws color at you and something like that can happen, and it can sometimes be a little off-putting. But
Yeah.
you have to understand, this is a very, very Holi is probably one of the most authentic in indigenous festivals that has maintained its nature throughout
Mm.
the two waves of colonization, and even this modern fad of westernization. We have sort of at least wholly preserves that original authentic character. So
Mm.
it started off in villages where everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
So first of all, like that, there was this implied sense of relationship, even if it wasn't blood relations.
Yeah.
And then so they first sort of this was like a community level uh, function, right? And that uninhibition or lack of inhibition can be a little, I would even say jarring, which is why you sometimes
Disconcerting,
start,
you know.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
disconcerting or even maybe jarring, which is why you start seeing these, tweets of so hyper civilized, hyper westernized or colonized people tweeting about, oh my God, this is so rowdy, this is so,
Rowdy. Yeah.
I've even heard toxic masculinity pop up, but like, if you see my behavior, then it's also very
You would
toxic
probably come under
masculinity.
toxic masculinity on that day,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. If you see all my behavior, I'm no better actually.
Yeah.
Um, but no,
True.
but I think, but of course there is, at the same time, whenever you have some festival like this, there'll always be elements that try to misuse it and pull that off. But that's not the nature of the festival. Like you can't change a festival because there are criminal elements in the society.
Oh yeah,
That doesn't make sense,
that's true.
obviously.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
Um,
true. Yeah.
Absolutely.
but yeah, to
Mm.
your point, it can be, a little bit shocking, but that's also
Mm.
why so many people are attracted to this festival. Like, in fact, I live in New York, and ever since I moved here, I know that there is a grand Holi celebration that happens in New York. And there
Mm.
is I've actually even participated in a couple of them. Obviously, we can't do it on the actual date because it's too cold. So
Mm.
the Holi celebration in New York is delayed and usually happens in like May. And we book an entire park. The Haversport Park is booked for celebration, and the colors are sold in the stalls right there. There is Indian dancers performing, and there's like snacks and everything. Like they try to recreate that experience to the extent possible, because it's just so intoxicating in that sense. Like you if you see it like vicariously, you want to be a part of it.
Mm. I
It
think
gives
that
you purpose.
that freedom to let go of any inhibitions is something very tempting for everybody, no? I mean, you're
Exactly.
always living a very rule bound, boundaries, not to violate them, which is, of course, I think required too. But this one occasion to let go is something very
Yeah, it
attractive.
creates that balance, right? Like otherwise we are
Mm.
a fairly conservative society, right? Like we live
Yeah.
by so many rules that are implied, and that sometimes are not even written somewhere, but we have these social norms, and the society is very strongly structured around those rules that we have followed for millennia. So this one day where you get to be yourself and have fun, and tease and play and be naughty and all of that, and play pranks on people that otherwise would get upset, is an amazing experience. Like it just lets you be. It creates that
Mm.
balance, that is, I think, very necessary for us to survive.
Nehaji, in many ways, I wish I had known this growing up because I grew up mostly in South India and
Yeah.
did spend a couple of years in Bihar, in Patna. And I must tell you that my first Holi there was very unsettling for me because I had no background of Holi, witnessing Holi at all. And you're right, I did see many people wandering around, looking colorful, it's just this whole thing. It makes you quite unsettled. And I just wish I had known this to understand it in its proper spirit then.
Correct.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, even I remember while growing up, Holi was one festival where we would get afraid, you know. It was a bit fear-inducing because you don't know who will jump out from where to, throw those colors. Even I grew up in the south, so there was a sense of fear associated with Holi. Um, it's just that you're not used to somebody coming and rubbing so much color on you and you looking like a ghoul after that, so that's
We have all these concepts now of personal space and things like that that we have grown up with because we have internalized them so much. Maybe, the modern Western thinking that we all grew up with. So Holi is one occasion that doesn't leave you with this concept of personal space. And that's what I remember thinking back then. But then, it's always the lens with which you view these things. And knowing what I know now, it just seems like, I should have relaxed and participated.
Yeah, so I think
Correct.
there's
Now,
one more thing though. Like there is an important. No, you bring up a very important point. I think what I have noticed personally, and I may be biased, and if your experience is different, I'd be happy to hear it out. But from what my experience says, we if I'm passing by, all in the mood, and if I notice somebody who's clearly in like telling with me with their body language that they don't want to participate, then most people will leave them alone actually. Unless there's somebody is trying to create nuisance, people will generally leave them alone. Um,
Mhm.
but of course, if you are participating, like if you're fully colored and you have a bag in your hand, even then I've seen like usually, especially with women and women you don't know, if somebody wants to play with you, they'll come and ask first, is it okay, Didi, if I put color on you? Something like that, right? So
Yes.
that kind of respect is still there. Like when we don't completely forget who we are. But I think again, like as you said, like very correctly observed that it's all about the lens that you see it from. If you weren't scared, and if you were willing to participate, the experience may be actually very beautiful.
It is
Yeah,
because the first
yeah,
year I remember
listening to
thinking all
you,
these
it
things.
sounds like real, letting your hair down completely, it's so much fun.
exactly.
But
And
but
it
we
grows on
never
you.
got this perspective growing up, so
Yeah.
I
Because
personally
your
was
family
always
wasn't
very scared.
participating. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the difference, right? Like when you start, like from like in the morning on the color playing day, you're actually not supposed to start playing unless you've offered color to the gods and then to the
Uh-huh.
elders. So I was
Mhm.
the youngest, and I was obviously the most excited also to play Holi. So the first thing I'll do the moment I get up, I'll brush my teeth, and mom will try to put some breakfast out, but I'm not interested, and I will wear whatever clothes I've earmarked to be destroyed by Holi. I'll wear those, and then I will put like a plate of all the various colors, and I'll go to the puja room, put it on the gods, offer it to the gods, and come back and wake up every family member and put a tika on them so that I can start playing. so,
Okay.
so as soon as possible, like even if you have not woken up, the tika will be there because I need to go. so so I'll once I'm ready, and all the other cousins from other family, and we used to live in a sort of joint family setting. So then I'll go around the rest of the place, offering the same thing. And then of course, every single time I had to be reminded that I should put oil on my body first. So we'll take mustard oil and we'll put it earlier so that it stains less, like the color stain less if you put
Mm-hmm.
oil.
Okay.
So we'll drench ourselves with mustard oil, including the hair, and then you wear those
Mm.
clothes. And so you very already you the moment I enter, I'm prepared for the for what's about to ensue. So it starts like that. Like it starts simple, and all the every single family I'll visit, they'll have snacks on the table ready, somewhere
Mm.
hopefully outside where you don't have to walk too much inside to like, otherwise you'll just spill colors everywhere. So they'll whatever is their visitors area, they'll put out like a whole plate of snacks right there, and they'll
Okay.
offer you, and then as I said mentioned, like that special sweet has to be prepared, gujia.
Mm.
So that is also a night. So in some families there is a culture that you have to prepare it the night before, after the holika has burned, like that holika dahan has happened, that bonfire has happened. And that's also a
Okay.
decently elaborate ritual. So mostly all of the family would be involved in that also. So it's made from like from maida, which is like
Mm-hmm.
filtered wheat flour, and
Mm.
you use maida and you add like flatten it into a small puri, and then you fill
Mm.
it with a sweet mixture of milk solids like mawa, and
Mm.
before that you have to fry mawa to a golden brown color, and then you add dry fruits in it and powdered sugar or gur, like jaggery. And so
Okay.
that mixture is prepared. That is the filling of that gujia. And then you seal it up in a like it's a semicircle sort of shape. And then it is fried. So again, everyone wants you to try out their gujia, and then you have to praise the gujia,
Actually, we
depending on
have a
how it turned
similar
out.
sweet in the south, it's called um, yeah, what
We
was
call it
that?
kajikai. In Telugu, we call it kajikai.
Yes, yes.
what you call it, but there is something very similar. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Oh yeah, it
The
is
filling
exactly
is
that.
slightly
Looks exact.
different, you know. Yeah, the filling
Acha.
is different. In the south, I think they put either uh, chana dal mixed with gur, or they put coconut
We
in
also we also
mixed
put
in
coconut, but the
jaggery.
base is mawa.
That's
The
what
base for
milk
us is
solids are
mawa.
not there. I've
Acha,
not
okay,
seen
okay.
milk solids in the southern version of
But
this
by
sweet.
the way, there is a very interesting linkage here. So, one interesting thing that my friend Sahana Singh has found is that during the reign of King Harsha, several families, and I'm talking hundreds of families of Brahmins, learned Brahmins, were invited to live in the Agrahara he was setting up in Karnataka. And they were all
Okay.
invited from the Ahichatra state part of Uttar Pradesh, which is now Bareilly. So
Oh,
actually, Sahana Singh's own family traces her origins to Ahichatra area. So it is,
wow.
and that is why it's my personal observation also that the some specific traditions, whether it's wedding rituals or even these folk traditions, have a lot of commonality between Karnataka and Uttar Pradesh.
Mhm.
I don't know if this particular sweet is related or not, but I'm just saying like it's entirely possible that there is some cultural interchange that has caused this very similar sweet to have come into being.
Yeah, yeah, we should find a lot more of these linkages, just to end this whole north-south divide,
Oh,
completely.
absolutely. The more
Yeah,
you get to know each other, the more you find out it's so similar.
It is
There's
it is
more common than there are more commonalities than differences.
correct.
totally. I mean, the food, the customs. There's a lot in common, and this whole thing about UP and Bihar. I feel the culture is just so vibrant, and
Mm.
it's not really understood by a lot of people who have modernized. And
Mm-hmm.
the beautiful thing is that that area of India, I think, holds on a lot still to respect for elders, to tradition, and also has a very, a playful way of bringing out these festivals. So it's a beautiful blend, and it comes very close to, I like to think of it as India that used to be. So I have a lot of admiration for that,
Bharat that used to be, perhaps.
Bharat that used to be. I like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Neha ji, we've had such a great time reminiscing about your Holi, not our Holi, but your Holi, and had a lot of fun. So, I would just like to ask you what is the primary story associated with the festival of Holi?
Yeah, yeah. So there are actually several deity specific legends that exist around Holi. So Holi happens on a very specific time, like it's right before the wheat harvest, very close to the vernal equinox. Now, before I
Mhm.
get into the legend of Holi, it's important to note that this is a very common time for most indigenous festivals, like where most non-Abrahamic cultures around the world to celebrate equinoxes is a very it's a very common pattern to celebrate specific movements of the moon and the sun, right?
Okay.
These kind of celebrations are very common, and so this one is also very similar. Also in other cultures, for example Native American cultures and even Latin American cultures, pre-Christian ones, you can find similar bonfire rituals.
Okay.
And also, I don't know if you know, but similar to Lohri, like another bonfire ritual that we have, there is a very beautiful parallel in pre-Christian Ireland and Scotland even, where equinoxes and solstices are considered these very powerful times. So this
Okay.
one, Holy falls very close to the vernal equinox,
Mhm.
and that is right before the time of the wheat harvest. So North India, for several centuries now, wheat has become one of the most important crops. And so this is sort of a celebration and also an evil warding ritual. The bonfire serves as an evil warding ritual to ensure the health of the crops, to ensure the health of the people, and in general well-being and prosperity. Right.
Okay.
So that's the one important, like the indigenous commonality of it all. But speaking of our Shastras and Puranas, the first or the most important mention is found in Bhagavad Puran, which is also known as Srimad Bhagavatam.
Okay.
And there you find the story of the Narasimha avatar, which is related to Hiranyakashipu, the demon, and Prahlad, Bhakt Prahlad.
Okay.
So the story basically goes that King Hiranyakashipu was one of the two sons of sage Kashyap, and they, through both of them, through extreme penance, had gained several boons from Lord Brahma.
Mm.
And the hidden
That-
aspiration, sorry,
Who is it that has gained the boon from Lord Brahma?
Hiranyakashipu, who's the
Okay.
son of sage Kashyap, but he is him and his brother both are demons. So Hiranyaksha is the brother, and Hiranyakashipu is the other son. So there are two sons. So they've gained boons from Lord Brahma, and he has this hidden aspirations, like pretty much all demon stories, to rule the entire universe. So his arch enemy in the story is Vishnu. Because Brahma and Shiva both are sort of like, distracted and don't really care about the running of the universe, right? So these demons always fixate on Vishnu for these purposes.
Yes.
So this fellow, he has now, so he gets a very interesting boon. So by the laws of nature, you can't actually ask for immortality.
Mm.
So when you do this extreme penance and you have to ask for a boon, these demons still want immortality or undefeatability, and so they get
Mm.
creative. So this guy gets really creative, okay, and so he asks that I should not be able to be killed inside the home or outside the home. Okay, I
Mm.
should not be able to be killed during the day nor at night. I
Okay.
should not be able to kill from any known weapon or any other thing, and then
Mm.
I should not be able to be killed by any human being or an animal,
Okay.
or I should not be able to be killed either on the ground or in the sky.
Yeah.
Okay, so he thinks he's
So
covered all the
all
avenues
the, yeah. All right.
of possibilities of how he can be killed. And so
Huh.
now, because these some of one of the criteria will be met, and so essentially he becomes invincible for the most intentional purposes.
Mm.
So now he is convinced that he is like the master of the universe. Nobody can defeat him, including Vishnu, because all of these rules sort of apply to everybody. It doesn't matter who's killing him. So he is full of ego and greed and jealousy and confidence. And he establishes a rule in his kingdom that nobody except him can be worshipped. So he declares himself as the one true male jealous god. So he is now the only god that is allowed to be worshipped in his kingdom. Now, as you can imagine, the entire kingdom is full of people who've been practicing their dharma for years and years. And suddenly this diktat comes. So he reigns a terror on all of these people. Anybody who tries to oppose us is instantly killed. So this goes on for, in fact, decades. And all of his subjects are, reeling under this persecution, except for one person who's Hiranyakashipu's 10-year-old son Prahlad. So
Mm.
he is fully defiant and he does not care whether he lives or dies. He is only going to worship Vishnu. So initially, Hiranyakashipu is angered by his son's defiance. So he sends him to this Pathshala where he already has convinced these acharyas to impart, the teachings of Hiranyakashipu. So they are trying to convince Prahlad that he should forget about all other gods and he should only focus on Hiranyakashipu. Because
Mm.
Hiranyakashipu is undefeatable, and that's not true for, that makes him superior to Vishnu. But Prahlad, who is already well versed in the teachings of Sri Mahavishnu, he defeats them in a philosophical debate.
Okay.
These sages are very upset and convinced, in fact, but they will lose their heads if they start agreeing with him. So they are uncertain, and they go back to Hiranyakashipu that I cannot convince this kid. So he is again angered, and this time he says, okay, I'm going to make an example out of you. So I'm going to punish you in such a tyrannical way that anybody else would think twice before disobeying me like this. And imagine, this is a 10-year-old son, his own son, that he is waging this war against. Now, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, verse 7.5, he tries to crush him with an elephant. Hiranyakashipu tries to crush his 10-year-old son Prahlad by elephant, attack him with huge snakes, cast spell of dooms, throw him from heights, to conjure tricks, imprison him, administer poison, and subject him to starvation, cold, wind, fire, and water. He threw rocks at him. But none of these means the demon succeeded in putting his son, the sinless one, to death. With his prolonged efforts having no success, he got very nervous. So at this point, he enlists a long list of demons he had in his army, and he unleashes all of them on Prahlad. All of them fail. Prahlad is saved from all of them because of the blessings of Sri Vishnu. So eventually, Hiranyakashipu finds his own sister Holika. Now, Holika also has a boon. She has a boon that she has been granted a cloak, or like a cloth, that protects the wearer from being burned in the fire. So she can, if she dons herself with this cloak and she sits in the fire, she will not be burned.
Okay.
So on Hiranyakashipu's command, this woman lures her young nephew into sitting on a pyre. She puts the nephew on her lap, puts the cloth on her own self, and sits on a pyre, and the pyre is lighted. So as the fire starts raging, the wind blows, again from the blessing of Sri Vishnu, and covers Prahlad and uncovers Holika. So instead of Prahlad getting burned, Holika gets burned.
Okay.
And the innocent child is saved. Now, eventually, and this is the relevance, this is the moment that is celebrated as Holika Dahan.
I think we will stop at this point for today, and we will discuss further in our next podcast, which will be coming up very soon. We have so much to discuss with Neha ji, and there is just so much more fun awaiting y'all in a few days' time. So we will take a break for this podcast and come back with the second part of this podcast in just a couple of days' time. So please hang in there and wait for the continuation of this episode. Thank you and namaste.